Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach and I'm hoping I can finally publish this video. I've been having a lot of issues with Camtasia and a couple of other things have come up that have stymied me from actually getting any content out. So I'm hoping I finally landed on a way to move forward and get stuff to actually work. So the issue with Camtasia, I've been using it for years with external mics and cameras and it's all worked. And just recently I've noticed that when I record that Camtasia doesn't seem to be recording all the audio. It seems to be missing little pieces here and there. And so that adds up and it sounds just like a little clipped, for lack of a better term. And so like in a 22-minute video that I recorded, I had 21 minutes of audio. And so nothing lines up. The audio sounds a little crappy at times. And I'm just like, I can't do this. So I opened an issue with Camtasia. We've been trying all sorts of things. One thing I was almost going to do is take this old digital 8-track recorder, which I found the manual on, which I was reading through to see how do you get the USB to read and all this other stuff. And then I was going to have my mic do a pass through to that and see if that worked. But that was going to be moving some stuff around my desk and I don't even know if that would work. What I've landed on, and if you see this video, that means this was a successful trial and hopefully I'll keep doing this, is I'm still going to use the built-in camera, which isn't quite as good, but you don't really see it that much when I'm recording, so no big deal. It seems like the camera also has a little bit of missing, but you don't hear it. So it doesn't quite line up as much as the screen capture time, that's what's doing what Camtasia is doing the most of the work on. So even if it's just like a little bit, no big deal. I could potentially play with that. The audio was the big problem. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using the sound recorder tool in Windows, recording that while I'm having Camtasia run. And I did a couple of 2-minute tests on that, and that seems to work fine. So we'll see in this bigger test if I import a bigger file and does everything line up. I have to do like this to get the audio and the visual to line up, but that's not that big of a deal either. Sometimes when I'm recording, I do, like you'll hear me say, I'm going to pause, come back. And so I could just hit the pause in Camtasia. If I do that, I'm going to have to do that on both of them. And then remember to start both of them up again. And then also realign so that the audio and the video are the same again. But again, it's just, in this one, I'm just going to run everything and not pause because I don't want to deal with that as much. I want to see if this solution works so I can finally move ahead and get some content out there and start recording videos again, because that's really what I want to do. So with all that said, there's been a couple of other things that have been taking up a little bit of my time. One of them has just been, I have to keep remembering to look at this camera, not that one. And I'm probably gonna have to move that camera if I don't really use it, because that's not where I should be staring. Force a habit. One thing I've been trying to get done is some VS Live presentations. I've been going to speak at VS Live in Orlando, and I had to get my slide decks in, and I've also had to update some content because I'm doing a talk I haven't done in 3 years. So, stuff just needs to be changed on that. I've been spending some time there. I've got that done now, although I'm going to have to spend the next 2 or 3 weeks making sure everything's updated and ready to go. The other thing was I was practicing and rehearsing for, of all things, a karate tournament, which I had in Bellevue a couple of weeks ago. At this point, maybe it's a month ago, but who's counting? So I'll put a picture up now of me and my sensei as I'm holding my 4th place trophy. I did a form and sparring. And for me, it was really about just the experience. I didn't care if I placed. I didn't care if I got a trophy. I wanted to do the best I can, but it wasn't important for me to what's that song from Karate Kid? You're the best around. That just didn't matter. If I got 1st place, yay, but I just want to see what it's like and what you do when you're in these things. I wanted to maximize my participation, which, since the sparring was single elimination and I had 7 other people in my group, I had to win the first match. Otherwise, I'd only do 1. But if I won my first match, I did 2 others, because even if I lose the second one, I had a consolation match. So I won the first, but I lost the other 2. At least I only lost 2 to 3 in both of those. So I had that going for me. But again, it was, again, competition. I wanted to try to do the best I could, but I was trying to just see what this was all like. We only have one dojo in the Twin Cities for this group. There's a lot of them out in Seattle and some in California, and I think one in Denver. So there was a lot of people there for the event, but there was only me and another kid from our dojo that actually went out there. Again, you have to get a hotel, you got to get flights, you got to get, either rent a car or get rides everywhere. I could walk to the event. I got a hotel close enough I could walk to the event. So that was good. But, it was fun to do. I really did enjoy it. Didn't get injured, although, you're not going in there trying to punch the hardest you can against somebody because, they do want to minimize injuries and stuff like that. By the way, I don't know if you can hear right now, it's raining, just pouring out right now, and there's thunder. So you might be hearing that off and on in the video, but there's some things I can't control, and that's the weather. Oh, well. So again, I probably will do that next year and do at least one more time because it was fun. But it did take up some time, not a lot, but I was practicing with the punching bag a little bit more and practicing my form, during the day a little bit more. And so, it ate into my free time just a little bit, but that's over with too. So I worked on an issue, actually a feature with rocks, in part because we are looking at where I work using another mocking framework other than MOQ, or at least seeing what other options are out there. And I threw rocks into the ring and said, hey, why don't we consider this? Of course, there's a substitute, fake it easy, but I wanted to see what people found in using it. And there have been actually some bugs, 2 bugs that have been found. That's why I want to get to recording, because I want to start working on those bugs to fix them and do it while I'm recording. But there was this thing I came up with because I'm like, I think I can make this slightly easier for somebody who's just coming into it. In some ways, I think Rocks is very mature. It's been out there now for 8 years, but it's also immature because it doesn't have a lot of usage. And you really have to kick the tires, eat your own dog food to see how things are interacted with. That sounds like hail. Wow, that's really coming down. That's actually kind of a little scary. I'm just checking the weather right now, the weather app, because I knew there was going to be storms coming in. Yeah, there's a severe thunderstorm warning. Yeah, I get that. And yeah, a little red. I don't know if you can see that, a little red on my phone right now. But I'm hearing, yeah, I don't know if you can hear the little pops behind me. I just hope it's not big enough to cause damage. Or enough to cause damage and I get my siding replaced. I don't know. But anyway, it looked like it was hopefully going to pass through somewhat quickly. Let's see. It's going to, yeah, it usually, if I watch the radar, I'm seeing what's happening and then we get hit right now, and that's the red. So that should be gone within the next 10 minutes or so. So hopefully I can get through this without a lot more interruption. Anyway, where was I? Oh, rocks, immaturity. People need to use it to see where some things are that I didn't consider. When I was looking through Rocks' API, I'm like, I think I can make default parameters a little bit nicer. And so that's what this issue is. So if you have a method like this with the void and you have some parameters that have default values, when you call a method like that, you don't have to specify them if you don't want to. If you don't, then they have B and 3.2. The way that this works now in Rocks is you have to basically pass in an arg is default. And the name of the API is not that good. It should be something like arg is parameter default value. And be a little bit more explicit, but then that makes it a little bit longer. And what I really thought was, could I just do it where you pass in these things, and if you don't specify the other values, you're just saying, I'm taking the default values of them. And I thought I could do something like this, because there's conversions between like an argument of string, if you have a string to argument of string, okay? But that doesn't quite work. So you need a standard conversion, not an implicit one, and that's not a standard conversion. So that's why I thought, oh, I can't do this down here. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, why don't I instead of having the argument types be argument of string and double, have them just be string b equals b. And then have this method turn around and call this method, and then that would work. I was like, oh, I thought that's genius. That's going to be great. But there's also another problem, and that has to do with indexers. So if you have, let me scroll up here. If you have an indexer like this, and it has a setter, and you have parameters with default values, properties are just syntactic sugar over methods, either a getter and or setter and or init, whatever the combination is. But there's actually methods that are mapped to the properties. So when you call a get, you're actually calling a method that returns a property value. So with an indexer, what happens is that a method is generated with the parameters corresponding to the number of values that are passed in for the indexer. But a property setter has a value. That's actually a parameter value. Same thing with an indexer. That value is at the end of the parameter list. So you see where I'm going with this? If you have something like this, and I did this in Sharp Lab, I believe, kept this up. Yeah, so I'm showing you a way around it. But this here, this indexer, if I look set item here, you can see that C# is able to generate the optional parameter with its default value before value. You can't do that in C# unless you use these attributes, optional default parameter value. And that works. If you look up here for foo, you see that we have string b before a. And here's that default value. That all works. But here's another problem. If I have a default value, like cancellation token equals default, you can't put in default here. It just won't work. C# won't let that happen. And so that was a case I couldn't handle. And I needed to be able to handle all of these cases consistently. So what I ended up doing to handle this is I put in the value parameter before the other ones now for a setter. And so I kind of gaslit myself. I said, well, the property setter has value first. Okay, so we'll just do that with indexers for our expectations. We'll put the value first and then all the property or the parameters after that. So if you look here, you'll see that, again, when we generate this, it's a little bit hard to see, but you'll see here's the value first. Too long a code. Here's the value after the extension, this parameter, and then the A and the B. And you notice here we're saying string b equals b, and then we turn around and we call this extension method here, okay, which is great. The only thing I also had to change was the order has to be set so that the values actually last here with the arguments, because when the setter's called, the value is actually the last parameter. So we got to make sure that we still have the order of the parameters correct, okay? But this all works now. And so the API for rocks is slightly better with optional arguments. You can, well, at least I think it is down here. Now we're saying the value for the setter is 52, and then you're passing in 3 for the first one, which is A here, and then you're just saying B is equal to the B string, okay? And that all works. You can still use arg as default. That's still supported if you want to do that. But you know, I kind of like this, and I'm probably going to, now I'm looking at this, changes to being is parameter default value. It's a little bit more wordy, but its description is better in terms of what it does. And arguably that would be a breaking change, but you just have to go everywhere where you're saying arg.isDefault to arg.isDefault is default parameter value, or however I say it. One and done. It's a minor breaking change, and it does the same thing it's doing right now. Yeah, it's a naming change, but I don't want to go all the way up to 8. You know, semver is great, but there are times where I'm just like, I don't want to keep updating the major number with something like that. So in any event, I didn't pause the recording. I didn't run any tests. I didn't run any code. So this is just something to get the ball rolling again. In the next video, hopefully I will start actually working on some bugs and another feature in Rocks, because I want to get a 7.2 version out fairly soon. And and then move on from there. So if you see this, it means it was a success. Thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.